were to be shut down, which is a rather more speculative judgment, that takes out about 4 million barrels a day or so. We are in a different position in 2011 than we were in 2008. Back in 2008, when there were difficulties over production or rumors of difficulties over production, there was very, very little spare production capacity anywhere in the world. Today, in 2011, we have spare production capacity in Saudi Arabia, we have spare production capacity elsewhere in OPEC, and crucially, we have hundreds of millions of barrels of strategic stocks under the control of Western governments run by the International Energy Agency. So I don't think we're in a situation yet where we can really sensibly call a $220 a barrel oil price.
Well, let's just take this scenario a little bit further then, if we can. If the unrest spreads to Saudi Arabia, the world's biggest oil exporter, what are the prospects for oil prices there? Does that mean all bets are pretty much off?
Oh, all bets are off. We've never had that situation before, and if you lose 6-7 million barrels a day from world oil markets, economies in the Far East, the United States and other countries would see a major disruption to their economies. The price rise, it would be impossible in those circumstances to speculate where the price could go. So it could well be that Nomura's $220 barrel figure, which they were positing as a possible consequence of the loss of oil from Libya and Algeria, that could then come into play. But it's completely uncharted territory.
We mentioned earlier the $36 billion in economic aid to help the Saudi people. Is that perhaps an attempt to avert a nightmare scenario like that?
Oh, it's a very, very clear sign that the Saudi authorities are concerned about the threat of contagion coming into their country. And these steps, a 15% pay rise and various other measures that you outlined earlier on are a sign to that they wish to meet any demands that may be placed upon them. But I suspect that a package even as apparently generous as this, it takes time for it to be actually implemented. It takes time for the money to work its way through the system. So it may well be that the package, attractive though it is, isn't actually enough to prevent a contagion if it's going to happen.
So how is all of this going to affect Europe's energy security? Because Europe's been down this road before with the gas dispute between Russia and Ukraine a few years back. That did affect supplies for a while. Are they in a position where they're able to deal with these kind of situations?
Well, under the auspices of the International Energy Agency, all governments in Europe and indeed further afield are required to hold a set level of oil stocks in reserve to deal precisely with this kind of emergency. So I would imagine, and indeed there was a public statement from the International Energy Agency earlier this week, that they would be prepared to release emergency stocks if necessary. The problem with that is that, of course, a barrel of oil here is not the same as a barrel of oil there. And it isn't just a question of sending along a barrel to replace a lost barrel, but because of differences in quality. And there are obviously logistical issues to be considered as well. But as a measure to deal with a shut-off of supplies from Libya and possibly Algeria, there are emergency stocks which are held for precisely this purpose.
So what's going to be the impact of all of this on the world economy? Are we looking at another double-dip recession?
I think we could be if prices were to escalate up through $120 towards $150 a barrel, the kind of levels we saw in 2008. The world economy is emerging from recession. There's little doubt about that. But the recovery is fairly sluggish. It's fairly fragile. And I believe that were we to see oil prices escalate to scary levels, then it could well be that the recovery is halted in its tracks and could even, as you say, dip back into recession. Oil prices affect everybody, not just the Western economies emerging from recession, but they also affect likely levels of growth in emerging economies in Asia and elsewhere around the world who find that their energy is costing them more. So higher prices or prices escalating very quickly are bad news for everybody.
All right, Neil Atkinson, many thanks for your time. Just before we go, we want to let you know that you can check us out online anytime. Just start at aljazeera.net/English. Hit the business tab at the top and follow the links to Counting the Cost page for episodes in full and special web-only content. And then when you want to get in touch, look for @AJCountingCost on Twitter. It's the best way to get in touch, share your thoughts and follow developments on the show. And that's it for this edition of Counting the Cost. I'm Hazem Seeker from the whole team. Thanks for joining us. The news on Al Jazeera is next.
Unpopular with some at home, untested overseas. The first year has not been easy for David Cameron and his coalition government. In conjunction with U2, Al Jazeera asks your questions to the British Prime Minister. World View, an interview with David Cameron at this time on Al Jazeera.
We do accept that there was very bad mistakes made in our banking area.
Behind the headlines
most South Koreans are not interested in reunification.
is the inside story at this time on Al Jazeera.
Rhythms of resistance.
A part of the struggle and popular resistance is art. Through my art, I resist. Resistance is my art, and my art is my war.
Musicians using music as a way to maintain their cultural identity.
I believe that when I sing to the world, I portray Palestine through my voice, my singing, and my songs.
Songs from the lost homeland. At this time on Al Jazeera.
It is in the details. A look. A connection. The moments that reveal the truth. Award-winning documentaries from critically acclaimed filmmakers. Witness documentaries to open your eyes. At this time on Al Jazeera.
The times change. The instruments evolve. The battlegrounds shift.
This is America! Our country!
But the international struggle continues.
He was murdered!
Uncompromising, hard-hitting investigations.
I can't get no justice from no one in Jamaica.
People and power, at this time on Al Jazeera.
When atrocities are committed against innocents, the international community must speak with one voice. And today, it has.
The UN Security Council votes unanimously to adopt biting sanctions against Libya's government. Welcome to Al Jazeera, live from Doha. I'm Sami Zaidan. Diplomats join a chorus of condemnation against Muammar al-Gaddafi, including his own spokesman at the United Nations.
The Tripoli regime has no longer any credibility. It goes without saying that this resolution represents moral support for our people who are resisting.
Plus, the US president says, for the first time, Gaddafi should go. Back in Libya, the uprising against Gaddafi goes on, and so does the crackdown on the opposition. And we go inside Muammar al-Gaddafi's underground bunker, which has been looted by protesters demanding his overthrow. The United Nations Security Council has unanimously voted for sanctions against Muammar al-Gaddafi and his inner circle. They include travel bans, an assets freeze and an arms embargo. It also pushes for the International Criminal Court to investigate those behind the violent crackdown on protesters. Well, it's the first time the US has backed referring any case to the ICC. Here's how its ambassador to the UN addressed the Council after supporting the sanctions.
When atrocities are committed against innocents, the international community must speak with one voice. And today, it has. Tonight, acting under Chapter 7, the Security Council has come together to condemn the violence, pursue accountability, and adopt biting sanctions, targeting Libya's unrepentant leadership. This is a clear warning to the Libyan government that it must stop the killing. Those who slaughter civilians will be held personally accountable. The international community will not tolerate violence of any sort against the Libyan people by their government or security forces.
Well, Libya's Deputy Ambassador to the UN thanked the Security Council for supporting the resolution, and Gaddafi's government, he calls it fascist.
The Tripoli regime has no longer any credibility. It goes without saying that this resolution represents moral support for our people who are resisting before the firing which has been imposed on them by the regime. Is an essential point in the position of the international community on the occasion of the carnage we are witnessing today in Libya. I have in mind here an attempt to protect civilians. This resolution will be a signal in order to put an end to this fascist regime.
Well, voting on the resolution was delayed as China deliberated on the detail, reportedly because of concerns over referring those abuse cases to the ICC. Its ambassador called on Libya to stop attacking its own people and open talks with the protesters.
China is very much concerned about the turbulent situation in Libya. In our view, a matter of the greatest urgency is to cease immediately the violence, avoid further bloodshed and civilian casualties, and to restore as soon as possible stability and normal order, and to resolve the current crisis through peaceful means such as dialogue. In this process, the safety and interests of the foreign nationals in Libya must be assured, taking into consideration the very special situation in Libya at this time and the concerns and views of the Arab and African countries. The Chinese delegation voted in favor of the resolution 1970 just adopted by the Security Council.
Let's speak to Awad Al-Fatouri. He's with the Libyan Information Center here in Qatar. Thanks so much for coming in. First of all, what do you make of the UN resolution?